to find our calling and unite us to experience life. The world's #1 TV brand. This is TV. Samsung.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. How are we? Good. How are we? Good. Glad to hear it. So, for me, this is probably my favourite time of year. I like it more than CES, and that's a big statement because I love CES. But at our local launch, we get to talk about the products that we're actually going to sell in this country. And that, to me, is exciting. You know, I'm constantly amazed every year I go to Korea and have a look at next year's product. I'm constantly amazed at how much better things get. And then the next year it gets better, and the next year it gets better again. I have a 4-year-old TV in my house, which is a big 75-inch, and I love it. But if I compare it to what you're looking at here tonight, it's chalk and cheese. But that is the biggest issue we face today, getting people to move away from a product they're comfortable with to something which just is an absolute breakthrough. And you know, Samsung have been breaking records for years now, for more than a decade. And we entered 2016 targeting our 11th straight year as the global leader in TV. We pioneered technology such as LED. We had the slimmest TV in the world. We had the first bendable product, the first curved TV, the largest curved TV ever sold. And we continue to break records this year with our new non-cadmium based quantum dot technology television. And to tell you more about tonight's proceedings, I'd like to pass on to JP, who'll fill you in on the details.
Thank you, Phil. Good night, everybody. For the people who don't know me, I am JP de Jong. I'm the National Sales and Marketing Manager for Audiovisual in Australia. And what we see in the market today is basically more choice than ever when it comes to purchasing a TV. Over the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen a lot of change and a lot of options for consumers out there. And also this year, we see some new standards in the market, like HDR. And that is very, very exciting. But at the same time, it can be confusing for the consumer as well. As Samsung, the leader in the category, like Phil mentioned, we've been #1 for 10 years. We have a duty to really educate the consumer and inform them really well so they can make the right purchasing decisions. So what we've done, conducted local research to really look at what do Australian homes look like and what do Australians actually look for. What do they think is important? And what we found is that there is a really need to cut through the jargon. So basically, we need to use very simple and clear language when we talk to the consumer. And what is even better than talking to it is showing it. And that's why Samsung this year, together with our retail partners, we're rolling out over 600 comparison displays throughout the country where consumers can see with their own eyes the benefits of Samsung SUHD Quantum Dot. Because seeing is believing. And not just Quantum Dot, but also the benefits of our curved TVs. Because research shows very clear benefits when you talk about the curved screen. And first one is there's less reflection. Second one, less distortion and a wider field of view. And what we've seen is Australians really embracing our curved televisions. In 2015, the portion of curved TVs within Samsung has grown. Within our SUHD range, more than half of the TVs that we've sold were curved TVs. So what we're going to do here tonight is we're basically curated 3 separate zones. And in those zones, we're going to share with you the insights from our research and really show how we're addressing those consumer pain points and consumer needs with our technology. The first zone is all about the experience, and we're going to show you the new Samsung user interface our one remote function, and basically showing you how we've made it easier to navigate the TV and navigate your sources. So making it easier to find your content, and with more content becoming available, there's a need to make it simpler as well. The second zone is all about picture quality. And there you have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the science and physics behind quantum dot. Well, you don't have to worry, it's not going to be me giving that presentation. We have here tonight with us Professor Quantum Research, David Riley, who was far more qualified to talk to that than I am. Our third zone is all about design. And there we have a designer, Amanda Talbot, who has experience in and expertise in creating that ultimate living environment. And she's going to talk to what consideration she applies when working with her client in designing that optimal living environment. We'll also have the opportunity to go a little bit more in depth to see what those research findings are around Australian homes and Australian needs. But one key insight and one key finding that we found is that in Australian homes, more than 70% of the homes have some form of open plan living. And this, I think, is a very, very good example of what open plan living looks like. I wish I had open plan living like this. But what it basically means is that we live in a very light, lit, bright homes to really take advantage of the sunshine that we have here in the perfect climate in Australia. Partly a reason why I moved to Australia. And we Australians, we love our movie nights, but at the same time we do like our daytime major sporting events. And we talk about cricket, we talk about AFL, NRL, grand finals. And when it comes to picture quality, what the Australian consumer is looking for is the ultimate viewing experience in all these circumstances. And that's what we're going to show you today in this house, how we, with our new range in 2016, bring that to the Australian market. So I would like to introduce Casey to come forward, because she's going to talk a little bit more about the logistics and how these different zones are going to work.
Great, I thought you had quantum dot there.
She's going to explain everything about quantum dot.
Okay guys, so thanks again. Thanks JP and thanks Phil for that. Before we break you guys down into your groups, just a couple of points. Press materials will be emailed to you during the session, so they'll be in your inbox. Any questions that you have as we move around the space, if you wouldn't mind holding them towards the end, just because we are on a timeline as we progress through the house, that would be fantastic. For those using social media, our hashtag is Samsung SUHD TV. It's on the bottom of your name tag. It's a catchy one. Okay, and now in terms of groups, we're going to break you down into 3 groups: red, green, and blue. See what we did there? The colours? RGB.
That's on your tag.
So everyone should have a coloured dot on their tag. If you're not sure, please come and ask me and I will help you. If I could please have those with a red dot over here. You're looking for Kate and Rob. This is the team red over here. Thanks guys. Trev, you're in team red.
I promise upstairs I won't do the presentation, which is correct. So what we have here is the picture quality zone. Like I said, upstairs, really having the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the science and physics behind quantum dot. We launched SUHD Quantum Dot last year with a huge success. We were the first in the market with a 10-bit panel, offering that broad color scheme and really achieving these high levels of brightness, kind of paving the way for HDR. And it's really exciting to see quantum physics and quantum technology applied to consumer products. And the benefits of quantum dot are quite clear and easy to understand, but the technology behind it is actually quite complex. And that's why we have here Professor Quantum Research David Riley to talk a little bit more about how quantum dot works, what it does, and how it relates to the TV.
Great, thanks very much, JP. I'm very excited to be here. I wanted to tell you that, first and foremost, the word quantum you've heard about many times before. It's something that sort of gets a lot of press. It's about an exciting technology, but it's also a word that you'll see commonly attached to things that frankly have nothing to do with quantum physics, from washing powder to lawnmowers. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about genuine quantum physics, the physics of Einstein, the physics that has enabled many of the technologies that we've seen over the last 100 years, pioneered based on quantum physics. But there is a new era in quantum physics that's just starting. Quantum computing, quantum sensing, these types of applications that are just really at that cusp of technology. That technology is what you're seeing in the display before us. So what I'd like to do is maybe just step back a little bit, try and tell you some of the details of the physics of how color is transmitted, how color is represented in a television screen. Take a little bit of a walk through some of the history there of how we've ended up where we are today, and then tell you really what is a quantum dot, why do I want it, how is it going to really enhance my visual experience, how is it that I can have quantum physics in my living room. So let's take a step back. Of course, color vision is transmitted, as you know, via primary colors, via 3 colors, RGB. Those colors are not by accident. They correspond to the cones that you have in your retina. So if you think of the color cells, the cells in your retina that respond to certain types of colors, that is wavelengths of light, then human beings have usually 3 kinds of color cells. There are some women on the planet who actually have 4 and see a little bit in the ultraviolet, but the vast majority of the population has 3 different types of cone cells. Televisions generate color by triggering those 3 different types of cone cells in the retina. So if you could imagine, say, the color purple, there's a purple flower before us here on the table. That purple flower to your retina, to your eye, is triggering some of the red cones, those cells that respond to red light, and a little bit of the cells that respond to blue light. Your brain is interpreting those signals of the red cones and the blue cones firing, and stitching that together to transmit the image, the color of purple, the blending of those 2. Creating color on a display is done in exactly the same way. You have to start with primary colors, the red, the green, and the blue, and then you want to be able to blend the intensities, be able to control the intensities of those 3 colors in order to then be able to create a vast color spectrum of millions or even a billion colors in this particular case. Going back to the beginnings of television, back to cathode ray tubes, colors were generated by firing electron beams at a phosphorus screen. And you can probably remember as a kid, or even depending on what kind of a life you had as a teenager, maybe getting right up close to a CRT screen that was off, and you can make out the red, the green, and the blue of the subpixels there. And CRT screens work by electrons firing, and if those electrons come in at the right angle, that hit all of the blue subpixels, they light up blue. If they come in at a different angle, they can hit the green ones and light up green. The process that generates the color is limited there by the colors that phosphor on a glass backing can produce. It doesn't matter whether you upgrade the electron gun, it doesn't matter whether you move to all of the technological advances that we've seen, still in that particular case are limited by the colors that can be produced by the fluorescence of phosphor on glass. When you move to liquid crystal displays, it's actually not so different. In a traditional liquid crystal display, the color is generated by a backlight. It's generated by, in modern LCDs, by light-emitting diodes, that's the semiconductor devices, that emit light with a certain spectrum. That light is then transmitted through to the pixels, opening and closing of small shutters that again combine the red, the green, and the blue. So hopefully I haven't lost you so far. What I'm really trying to say, the bottom line there, is that all of the color that you see in all televisions that have ever been created, in all display are built by combining red, blue, and green. There are many advances in the way you do that. Very fine control over just a little bit of purple, a little bit more of red, and you can blend colors that way. But there is a limitation, and that fundamental limitation of all of the displays that we have is that the source of the color itself is either a white light with a filter or a colored LED. You're not going to get around that limitation unless you change the source itself, the source of the color itself. Quantum dots are nanoscale devices. They're nanoscale components, crystallites, that can change the fundamental basis for which the color is actually generated. So what is a quantum dot? Tiny crystal of a semiconductor that fluoresces. So the advance here, though, is that the color that it produces is dependent on the size of the nanoscale particle. If I change the size, I can change the color. Imagine gold. You can take gold, everybody knows what gold looks like. If I take gold and I kind of grind it down a little bit and make a dust out of gold, it still looks gold. If I keep on making it smaller and smaller and smaller, once I start to make gold particles that are smaller in their diameter, below 100 nanometers, they look green. If I keep making them smaller, they look a little bit more blue. And if I keep making them smaller, they look bright red. So something else is going on here. We started with gold, we made it smaller, nothing happened. We made it even smaller, and when you get to the nanoscale, you actually change the fundamental physics underlying how the color is produced. So what's happening inside a quantum dot device, inside a quantum dot crystal, is that there is strong, what physicists would call quantum confinement. That is to say, if you were an electron trapped inside a quantum dot, you would feel the walls of the dot above you, below you, on your sides. That confinement is squeezing the electron effectively. And that squeezing effect leads to energy levels being spread out in such a way that depending on the squeezing, I get more and more spread of those energy levels. And the color that's produced is related to the difference in those energy levels. So it's a little bit technical. Let me say it with an analogy. When you're talking about color, the analogy to sound, of course, is the pitch, the note. Red would be in the bass, blues would be in the treble. Imagine taking a musical instrument, maybe it's a guitar string. You think, well, the note that's produced, that's related to the length of the string. It's the wavelength of the sound. If I make the guitar longer, I get a lower note. So the size of the string is what's controlling the note. That's exactly what's happening here. It's the size of the crystallite, the size of the quantum dot, that sets the color that that quantum dot can emit. The real big advance for these types of technologies is that that color that it's emitting is not dependent on, for instance, other ambient light or its environment. It's set by the physics of quantum mechanics as to what that color can be. So it's possible to engineer very precisely the color distribution. In the television you see behind you, quantum dots in combination with UV LEDs are used to produce the primary colors, the red, the green, and the blue. We've fundamentally changed the process that leads to the generation of colors. That's a major advance. That's exploiting the physics of Einstein, the physics of quantum mechanics, as opposed to the physics of, in some ways, Newton, that dates back, in fact, 300, 400, 500 years ago is the technology that has been. So it's an exciting time to start to really harness the physics of these quantum systems. Let me make a remark about the lifelike colors that you see before you. If you were able to take some, it could be a flower, it could be other examples of really vivid colors that we see occurring naturally, and ask the question, why is that rose petal really so red? What is the physics of the generation of that color? It has everything to do with the microscopic nature of the petal itself. If you put that under a microscope, an electron microscope, and look at the structure, the nanostructure of the surface of the petal has everything to do with the color that's being produced. Nanoparticles and quantum dots, fluorescent crystals, these are things that we see throughout nature that is responsible for generating the most intense colors that we see. So one way to look at this is that we're taking that technology we're taking that piece of physics that you see in nature, embedding it as a light source, as a color source inside the television, allowing the television now to be able to reproduce those extreme, intense, vivid colors that you see in nature. So it's not a gimmick. It's using the word quantum in a genuine sense. As a professor of quantum physics, I'm very happy to tell you that the physics that you're hearing about here, the physics of electron confinement, of generating extremely tight bands of color, is real. Not only does it lead to this advance, I think, in the visual sensation, but you're also really able to think about televisions that are putting all of their energy into color generation. If I'm relying on those older mechanisms, then a lot of the energy is gone into generating not a tight, a well-defined color, a particular color, say a red, but some of the energy is going into adjacent colors that then are filtered out, and that filtering process leads to heat. That leads to a loss of energy, and so you end up with an efficiency gain because all of your energy now is going into just that very tightly constrained color, again relying on the discrete energy levels associated with the confinement of a quantum dot of that crystal light. So size matters. Size leads to a means of controlling the color very accurately, and with that control you can then start to really tailor the properties and create the spectrums that you see before you today. So after the session, I'm happy to take any detailed questions or discussion later on and tell you more about the physics of quantum dots. Thanks.
How important is the processor and the speed of processing to deliver that content to a screen when it's processing that color?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
If you're happy to,
I'm happy to take that. You can chime in as well. So there's two processes here. One is the generation of the color itself.
Yeah.
The other is what physicists would call the modulation of that color. So to generate whatever spectrum you see before you, I need to be able to blend some red with some blue with some green and control the intensities, the brightness of each one of those primary colors. If I can control that brightness with a very small increment, very gradually, for the tech aficionados in the room, I'm talking about the resolution of the color digital analog converter. The more resolution I have, then the more the smaller the step size, I can vary those intensities. But that's a separate process from the generation of the color to begin with. You're still going to be limited, even if you have a 500-bit color resolution, well beyond perception of what a human being or even an animal could perceive. You're still stuck with the original source of the color. That's changed here. The fundamental source of the color allows for a much wider color gamut, as well as then having a 10-bit color resolution that gives you over 1 billion variations in those colors. So it's the source as well as the variation. So the processing power would relate to your ability to vary and control those intensities. And that's something that has been developed and pioneered as well.
I'll look at the timekeepers.
Yeah, we're almost reaching that limit. So let me see.
Quick one?
Roll.
You can go quick.
Very quick one, yeah.
Well, very quickly, okay, so you've got a UV backlight that excites the quantum dots.
Yes.
Your pixel is made of 3 colours in this one. How many quantum dots per pixel? Or is there lots, or is one dot enough for each? Sorry.
So the quantum dots, if you think about the quantum dots in the plane that is associated with the backlight, there is a UV LED source that generates the blue light. The red and the green is then generated from the fluorescent of a large volume of quantum dots. That green or red light is then fed to all of the subpixels in the display, and how much is let through is controlled, of course, by the liquid crystal.
The amount of...
Oh, so the quantum dots aren't scattered over the screen, they're in the light source and then they're piped to where they're needed.
Correct.
Oh,
And a big advantage of that you see in our screens, if you look at the traditional LED screen, what they do, if you have a LED which is from organically blue, they have to put a phosphor coating on top to create that white light before it hits the color filter. In our SUHD TVs, we can use that blue LED light because it then goes through the quantum dots. That allows our TVs to be brighter and at the same time generate less heat, will lead again to a better longevity of the TV. Because heat speeds up deterioration of the device. So I think we're almost out of time. I must say, I myself learned a lot over the last week from David. I also learned that there's a lot of stuff I don't know. This was very technical, and we hope you really get a better understanding how quantum dot works. But I do want to mention, as I mentioned upstairs, this is for you to understand. To the consumer, it will be very clear and precise and simple in our communication of what benefits this actually brings to them.
We'll tell ourselves.
Great, well this is the second stop on your tour today. I hope you've enjoyed your journey so far. My name's Caroline. I'm Head of Insights and Innovation at Samsung. I basically spend my days doing three things. The first thing that I do, and it's probably the most time-consuming part of what I do, is I go out and I listen to Australian consumers talking about their lives. Sometimes I'll do that sitting in a focus group room, other times I'll do that by reading their responses to surveys, but my favourite thing to do is to actually go out into their homes and see how they live in their homes. And the reason why that's interesting is because I get to see the difference between what they say they like and then what's the actual reality. So after I've listened to them, I then sit down and look at all of the information and understand how are they living their lives. And I can often see that difference between how they'd like to live and how they're actually living. And in that middle ground is where I get to see what are their pain points, what are their needs. And often they'll do one of three things. They'll be intending to resolve that challenge, they'll just sort of live with it, or they'll do some kind of a workaround. So one of those examples would be how Australians very often will have their blinds down in the middle of the day. Part of the reason why they do that is because that's their workaround, because they didn't want to move their TV in a certain direction, so they just sort of live with it. And then the next and final step that I do is I take this information that I have and I share it with colleagues all throughout the business. And I do that so that Samsung can best understand what it is that Australian consumers need, and that Samsung can be the company that best delivers on those needs. So that's what I do. I do other things too, but those are the main three things that I do. So I'm going to sort of give you a bit of an overview of Australian homes and the role of TV in Australian homes and sort of that reality of how it currently is. And then I'll hand you over to Amanda, who will talk to you a bit more about that ideal state and how she works with people to improve their current living situation towards that more ideal state. So first up is the role of TV in the home. So TV's been around for quite a long time, but it's still extremely important to Australian consumers. So important that 98% of Australian households own a TV. It's quite a high figure if you think about it. And that's at least one TV. Often they'll own more than one TV. What's even more interesting is whenever we spoke to them and we said, can you live without your TV? And 82% of people said, quote unquote, I cannot live without my TV. So it just tells you they've been around for a long time, and there's a lot of discussion about, it's becoming a crowded place and competition, but it's still such an important and central part of Australians' homes. So there are two modes that Australians are in whenever they're watching TV. Call it the lean in and the lean back mode. So lean in might be coming through the door from work, absent-mindedly flicking the TV on as you go into the bedroom to change into your comfy pants to settle in for the evening. It'll be on in the background and you'll be peripherally listening to it, but perhaps not paying very close attention to it. The other mode that you might be in whenever you're leaning back is whenever you're just sort of, you've had a long day and you just need to relax and just sort of sink into the sofa. And there you're looking to be entertained and to sort of quite passively consume entertainment and maybe have a little side conversation with someone during the commercial breaks. Or it might spark up a little bit of light chit-chat and conversation about what you're seeing on the TV and responding to things. The other mode that I've noticed that Australians tend to fall into whenever they're watching TV is the lean-in mode. And this is whenever you engage in activities such as gaming, which is really very important to a lot of people now, and it sort of speaks to the split use of TV for a lot of people. It used to be just watching TV, but now there are actually quite a few purposes that people are using for their TVs in their home. The other time that Australians are very lean in and focused is whenever, for example, they're listening for the weather in the morning to figure out what to wear for the day, or whenever they're listening out for a particular news story or something that's of great interest to them, or watching a movie, for example. So there's a few different mind states that Australians are in whenever they're interacting with this part of their life. So I'm going to have a little quiz with you right now. Don't worry, it's not that scary, but the prize will be some free champagne for the person who gets it right. How many TVs do you think are in the average Australian home?
2.5.
2.5?
3.4.
All right.
Pie.
Where's the point for us?
In the
Yeah, okay, so that's,
an
I
average.
was thinking it was going to be that. So it's actually 1.8 TVs in the average Australian home. I was quite surprised by that as well. So in my family home, there was 5 TVs. And whenever I dug into the data, I realised why my family had more TVs than average. So I grew up in a family of 7. More children you have, the more TVs you'll tend to have. So in households with kids, there's 2.2 TVs on average. Also, the kind of dwelling that you live in very much so influences the number of TVs that you have in your home. So those who live in an apartment will have as few as 1.4 TVs. You know, maybe most likely one in the lounge room, and then there might be a secondary one in the bedroom, for example. So of those 98% of people, sorry?
That's 2 TVs, not 1.4.
Yeah.
1.8.
Yeah, I mean that's a small one.
Yeah.
2 TVs on 1.8.
I know, it's like the 2.4 kids kind of thing. How can you have 0.4 kids?
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's 98% of Australian households have a TV, and of that 98%, 95% have a TV in the lounge room. So the TV is where the lounge room is where the biggest and the best TV goes, because we asked them about their different TV sets that they have in their home. And what we found was, it's not that surprising, but in the lounge room, it will be the biggest TV, it will be the newest TV, and it will be the one with the latest features. So it's the most likely TV in the household that will have the smart capabilities and other enhanced features. So that supports the finding that people will sort of graduate their old TV into other bedrooms in the house and leave this as the pride of place TV in the home. So what proportion of people do you think have a TV in the bedroom?
80%, 90%.
62.
Lower. Lower. It's lower than that, actually.
That was my
48%.
69.
I don't know, 40, I guess I thought that was kind of high. If you listen to what we're told not to put, TVs in the bedroom.
You don't pay attention.
Yeah. All right. And then, as JP mentioned earlier, something that really struck me was that 71% of Australian households are open plan living. That's really quite remarkable, because if you think about the fact that you're predominantly watching TV in your lounge room and you've got open plan living conditions, the spectrum of lighting conditions, so they need to have a TV that will be able to perform in those situations. All right, I'm just going to wrap up by telling you what our research told us and what consumers repeatedly tell me are their main friction points with their TVs. So number 1 is picture quality. And whenever consumers are getting a new TV, there's 3 things they care about. They care about it being bigger. They care about it being smart. They're not always sure what that means, but they want it to be smart. And the third thing they care about is the picture quality. So there they really are looking for an improvement on what they currently have. The next
In that order, bigger, smarter picture quality?
Bigger, picture quality, smarter, in that order.
Okay.
And that's in people who've already bought a TV and in people who are about to buy a TV, so it's quite consistent. The next pain point for them is one of those examples of those things that I mentioned earlier, where they'll work around it because there's not a good solution currently available, well, until recently. And that's the flexibility of where you get to put it. So I notice that whenever I'm sitting in people's homes and I'll notice the configuration, I'll say, I wanted to put it here, but then you get all the ugly cables at the back, so I've put it here, but it kind of interrupts the flow of the room. So that's one of those things that people are currently working around and sort of accepting as a reality, but if given the choice, they would like to have more flexibility of how they would configure their home. And then the third area is quite an important one, and one that often generates a lot of debate, and that's just general ease of use. So there are 3 things that they're thinking of there. First is getting it home. how much of a hassle is this going to be for me to set up? So obviously they're looking for as close to plug and play as possible, because there's a lot of excitement about it. A lot of people invite friends over to watch the unboxing, or they'll schedule a big or they'll schedule a big event the next day where they'll be like, oh, did you want to come and watch? Oh, look, there's a new TV, because they're very excited about it. But there can be that little pain point or a bit of anxiety about the journey as well. The next aspect of ease of use is just the day-to-day ease of use. And so if you think back to what I said earlier about that lean back mode, they just want to be able to relax, they don't want to be made to feel stupid by their TV, and they want to be able to toggle between the different inputs with great ease. So that can be another pain point. And then the final one is remotes. Boy, oh boy, do I hear a lot about remotes. You know, who's holding it, losing it, and in particular, how many remotes they have that they just don't know which one to pick up. They'll click this one, that's not the right one. So these are the three areas that Australian consumers are currently either putting up with, trying to resolve, or working around. So I'm going to hand you over now to Amanda, who's going to talk to you a little bit about how some of the considerations that she puts in mind whenever we're moving people towards that more ideal state of living.
Just one question. How many people are listening to television through the television versus an attached device, whether it's a soundbar or 5.1 channel sound?
I haven't studied that, so I can't tell you the exact number.
Also, with remote controls being an issue you were just mentioning, why did Samsung eliminate the IR blaster from its S7 range?
Probably need to get a product.
Yeah, I mean,
Because that could have been helpful for, you know. It's just I just was disappointed it was gone. But anyway,
that's a personal reflection, isn't it?
Personal. Well, I don't watch much TV. It's nice to have it there, and it's nice you can go to anybody's house and you know, or pubs or clubs, cause mischief, anything. It's fabulous. You know?
Hey, you might be coming on wireless. All right, great. I'll hand you over to Amanda.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Hi, this is nice and intimate. My name is Amanda Talbot. I have been working in the design industry for over 25 years. I've been involved from styling to interior, doing interior spaces for residential and commercial, trend forecasting, and I've penned a couple of design books as well. One of the big things that I've found over the years, I'm really passionate about, I've done a lot of travel and research across the globe to really understand how we live in our homes and how the future of where our homes and the design of our homes is going. And one of the big things that we've found is that our homes are becoming much smaller and our screens are actually becoming bigger. And the big thing over the last 4 years has been about hiding the television. It's about, you know, behind cupboard doors or behind screens and stuff. And then actually now by the screens are getting so large is that actually it's become a bit ridiculous to try to cover the TV. So the great thing is like with the future, with technology now, well, actually it's not the future, it's now, from people like Caroline and Samsung, and, you know, they've gone out and spoken to the consumer and realised that actually we're actually really design conscious now in our spaces, and so the design of a TV is actually super important. And so, you know, it doesn't mean we don't need to hide them anymore, but, you know, even simple things, you know, on just an aesthetic side with the curve, you know, it's much more playful within the space. It's just really quite sexy, really. And then, you know, even behind the TV, they've considered behind the TV, where in the past it's been really clunky, loads of wires, and you know, now it's amazing with the Bluetooth and wireless and limited cords. So as a consumer and as a designer, that's actually a really great thing for us. One of the other areas that was really important, I guess, that for me, and it's something I'm super passionate about, is that with technology, we're so consumed by it. It's everywhere now, and it's not something we can fight. It's like here, and so, you know, it's immersed in our homes. It's immersed in our everyday, outside of our homes, and so in our living spaces. In fact, we really need to find this really good balance between the human and the technology, and so by that, through design, we do that through natural materials, like through timbers, stone, We're looking at heavy linens and stuff like that, and it gives us that real balance and harmony within the space. The other area that was really, I found really, I guess, interesting as well is that when I was doing my research for my book called Happy, I found that there was this huge epidemic of loneliness, and which is very sad information to get, but in fact it was really important information because it meant that our homes actually have become this really important hub for us for where we're going to get our best social interaction. And so, so our living spaces are actually become super important. And one of the part of that research, when I delved a bit further, was finding that memories and experiences are really important for us, and that yes, it's about going to these great holiday destinations, but the actual thing that we actually treasure the most is to actually just chill out and do nothing with the people we love and like, flatmates and stuff like that. And so in the past, in design, we've kind of said that you need to hide in the back, not hide, but yeah, kind of like we create these sanctuaries in these back rooms, the bedrooms and the bathrooms, and lock yourself away from the kids and stuff like that. But the research actually shows that we don't feel like we get to spend enough time with the people in our home, and so in fact we actually need to be putting more dedication into actually our living spaces and create these really great environments for there. And I guess the TV has always been kind of considered as a bit of an anti-social thing, but in fact it's probably, for technology, it's probably one of the most social pieces that we have in our home. And in the way, like Caroline was saying, we'll chat between commercials, we'll talk about movies, we're just hanging out. And even to the point when we're going to work the next day, and around the water cooler and talking about what happened, or Game of Thrones or something like that. So it's actually quite a. I'm sorry, I just got a little champagne burp there. Exactly. So yeah, just I guess in conclusion, just about I guess with the TV and technology and stuff in the home, is that it's really quite exciting as a designer because it's actually made things much more limitless for us for how we design a space, where in the past, we probably would have put the TV up onto up here on the fireplace and out of resentment, but we had to put it there, where now we've got this opportunity that we can put it somewhere like here and create the fireplace as its own focal point. And I think that's quite exciting for the future for our homes and just as a designer. So I think you guys are off to somewhere else now.
Lots of other questions? Or?
Well, yeah, no, we do have time for questions. If anyone
so actually picking up a little bit of something Caroline has said, which is location is something people think about with their TV. Certainly my experience is that half where you put your TV is based on where the point comes out of the wall and where you can get it plugged in. How do you deal with that and how do you factor that in when you're thinking about design?
So actually it's a really simple solution and people don't realise, and it's actually just calling an electrician in, and it's not that expensive. And so we feel like, oh, there's the antenna and stuff like that, and we think, oh, that's where it's got to go. But in fact, you don't. You just need to get an electrician in and just, and the other really good thing too, if you're not going to have it, because a big mistake people make is putting all of their furniture stuff against the walls, and in fact you need to really take things off the walls, and exactly. And so you can look at putting cables in the ground, in your floor rather than in the wall and stuff like that. So you're not. The way they're set up is you can see the cables, but you can actually do it so you can't. So, which is kind of pretty amazing. Yeah.
Do you think builders have become more aware that, for example, power points that are in the floor with connector boxes in the floor, that the design process is also changing because of devices?
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what I was trying to say. Exactly that. Is that because of these devices and just where technology is taking us, is that we don't need to be restricted to how we were dealing with the TV before.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%. Yes.
Welcome everyone. My name's Simon Howe. I'm the Group Product Manager for Samsung Australia. And I'm really excited today because I'm going to kind of talk you through the developments and the advancements we've made in our consumer experience, both from a TV perspective and also some advancements that we've made in terms of our soundbar range for 2016 as well. So we did some local consumer research recently, and we're particularly looking at what are the key reasons for Australian consumers to upgrade their TV. So what we found were the top 3 reasons is they want a bigger TV, they want a TV with better picture quality, so I think those 2 are pretty obvious. But the third one that's kind of stuck out to us is they want a TV that's smarter. Now, that really highlights that consumers are really starting to understand what the additional benefits of having a smart TV are. So with obviously having Netflix, Presto Stan and those kind of video on demand services along with catch-up services like your ABC iView and things like that, consumers are really understanding how they can access that and how it can actually change the way they're watching. So what we did is we utilizing our Samsung Customer Experience Lab, which we have in Silicon Valley in the USA, and what they're doing is they're really researching and finding the kind of key insights in terms of what are the real-life consumer pain points that consumers are facing to really shape the way that we kind of designed our user experience for 2016. So basically we focused on 2 key consumer pain points, and they're real-life ones, and you will know them as we go through them. So the first one is easy setup and navigation of content. So we kind of touched on these streaming video on demand services such as Netflix, Presto and Stan. The switching and navigating between all of that with your Foxtel boxes and your PlayStations, your Xbox is becoming increasingly hard. So we've sought to fix that this year. The second one we've gone through is all about a remote control. So for example here we have a brand new UHD Blu-ray player, an Xbox One and a TV and a soundbar, all of which have their own remote control. Now I know at home I think I've got about 4 external devices connected, and my family get extremely frustrated because they don't know what goes with what. So we have really taken those consumer insights and we've developed practical solutions to fix them.
Does that include putting the IR blaster back in the Samsung Galaxy S8 so that you've got one device, which is your phone, and then,
This is
specifically from a remote perspective.
Remote point of view. Okay.
What we will say is, though, and what
your
we will
phone's
say,
the ultimate remote
for
your digital
life.
life.
Is from a TV perspective, if you're looking at, say, the S7, even though it doesn't have IR, it can still control your TV.
Okay.
So we haven't taken that feature out, we'll just use Wi-Fi instead of IR.
Sure.
Okay. So let's go to, I guess, the beginning of a consumer's kind of journey. So let's say they've just picked up the new UHD Blu-ray player and they plug it into the TV for the first time. So let me just mute that so it doesn't keep moving. So the first thing that the TV will do is it will automatically detect what you've plugged in. It will label it, put a logo, and put it into this source bar for you. So the first thing there is, it doesn't have to be a Samsung product, it can be other brand. We're talking Blu-ray players, DVD players, home theater in a boxes, gaming consoles, video streaming boxes. It will automatically detect it. Once it's automatically detected it, you can go up to here, and let's look at the Blu-ray as an example. And see here I can say add to home. When I add it to the home, I can move it anywhere I like along this bottom bar. So if you look at our new remote control, there's only one button that's home. And if you think about our TVs in the past, we've always had a source button that brings up sources up the top. We've got a smart hub button that brings up your apps along the bottom. But consumers now are flicking between them more and more frequently. It doesn't make sense for them to be in a separate spot. So we have put them all into one clean bar along the bottom that's fully customizable. So for example, you watch Foxtel, Blu-ray and Netflix a lot, you can order them in that order to really allow you to quickly and easily navigate through them. And second to that, let's look at Xbox One as an example, because it's a non-Samsung product here. Is a remote control will not only automatically detect it, but it will automatically control that device as well. So in the Samsung TV boxes, you will get a universal remote control in the box. So for example, if you use your Xbox to watch Blu-rays or you use it to access content, you can do all that without actually using the controller. And that works again across Blu-ray players, DVD players from all different brands, video streaming boxes, gaming consoles, so not just Xbox One, but PlayStations as well.
So this is via IR directly to the device, not through CEC?
It can
Depends
work
on
through both.
So it depends on. It really depends. Yeah, it really depends on the product. So, for example, if you talk about Foxtel box, it's IR. So this will work IR.
Yep.
But if it's say something like the Xbox, it will work through HDMI. However, and also say for a Foxtel box, if you need kind of some IR blasters to help that, they'll come in the TV box as well.
Okay.
You can do that now on a normal phone with an RF capability on a smartphone.
On a smartphone?
Yeah. So you can just set it up, turn on and off the Xbox, turn on and off the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing is that when you're doing that, when you're utilising a smartphone, you've actually got to install the Xbox part of what you want to play. This doesn't. This automatically does it.
It's automatic. So
if you've got a,
you don't need to. You don't need to learn anything with this. It's all built in. The code's already built into the TV.
It's a smart remote for dumb people.
Correct. Yes,
So-
exactly. But what I will also say is, for those people that perhaps might not want the functions of the smart remote, they might just want an old school remote control because that's what they're used to. In all the boxes that this smart remote is in, there'll also be the old school remote control as well. So there's 2 remote controls in those boxes. The one remote feature is available in our premium UHD and our SUHD range, so that's the 7 and 8 and 9 series range. But again, it's fully flexible in that regard, that you've got the old option of just a standard remote control as well if you need it.
So if you've got, say, a set-top box, non-Foxtel, and you want to select channel from Canva, 60, for example, how do you get the 60 on that remote?
So in terms of, like, are you using a set-top box or are you just using live TV?
To use it to watch live TV on
Yeah,
a set-top box.
so if you
Like a
set
Fetch
up live,
TV or something,
Yeah, so if
yeah.
you set up live TV here, you actually have the channels come across here, so you can actually do it from here without actually pushing 60. But you can.
But I want to set the set-top box to 60 so I can record it on the set-top box.
Yeah, so you can. There's a number button here. You press that and you can push 60. It will take you there.
So you allocate to a button.
That'll appear on the screen.
No, sorry. I'm saying if he wants to select 60 specifically, there's a number button here that will bring a keypad up that he can use.
Tell him your Foxtel, what you do with Foxtel.
But, sorry, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, so I want to tell my set-top box, not the Xbox, to go to channel 60. I bring it up there and select it on the screen.
Correct, yep.
And it'll control that.
Yes, correct. And then if you look at Foxtel as an example, so Foxtel will, we'll get some of this in a minute. With Foxtel, what it will do is it'll bring up a bar along the top, which I'll show you in a minute, but it'll bring a bar up along the top, and say, for example, you like sport, like I do, you can actually manually save your favourites. So I can say I like channel 500, 501, 502, 503.
You're pretty dumb, man.
That's pretty much all. That's pretty much all I use Foxtel for anyway. But there's so many sport channels now. I don't know which one. And basically, you can save them in your favourites. So I mean, with Foxtel, the remote is very kind of advanced, right? There's a lot of features of the Foxtel remote control. So maybe this may not replace a Foxtel remote control. But if you get up in the morning and you always go to Fox Sports News or BBC News, you can save it in
Are you still running the
favourite.
Foxtel app in this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm talking a Foxtel
the
set-top box
Foxtel,
specifically, yeah.
over, let's
Yeah.
say, a cable
IQ2 or something like that, yeah. So I can, say BBC or I can say Fox Sports News or whatever, and I can go to that all through this remote control without actually getting the Foxtel remote out. And then kind of to wrap that whole consumer experience up, if we look at Netflix as an example, what we've created here is, let's say we're watching Foxtel in the background. Foxtel keeps running in the background here, so nothing changes there. But what happens is I can start searching for what I want to watch next. So Netflix as an example, I can continue watching what I've been watching in the past, or I can see what's popular on Netflix at the moment. So for example, let's say I want to continue watching what I was watching, which was House of Cards. So if you think about it in the old way, you have to press the Netflix application, find House of Cards, click on that, find the episode, click on that. Not anymore. Basically just press the enter button. It remembers what you were up to, and it will start playing House of Cards at that episode that you're up to. We're having a few problems with the internet down here. We managed to...
We are in Australia.
Can you set that up for 4 different
Can we not
people?
split the cards for me as well?
It's only season 1, you're right.
Can you set that up for 4 different people?
So
Because,
this
like,
will
for
be
example,
based on
if
your
you've
last.
got
It'll be
4
based on the
people-
last profile that you were logged into. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
because Netflix gives you a choice for.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So
logins.
the last profile
So
that you were
just
logged
be the last
into will
one.
be that one. Yeah. And then from here, if you you think about when you used to turn the TV off and then turn it on again, it used to take you to your last HDMI source. It never used to bring you back into an application because it never used to save that. Not anymore. So if I turn the TV off, just wait for the logo to go out, I'll turn it back on. It will take me back to where I was. It won't take me into House of Cards, but it will take me to at least this location here.
Oh yeah, there's your hand.
And because... is that you, Dave? There's always one. So what we've really done is, again, we understand that consumers are not just watching, their set-top box or their live TV anymore. They're watching content. They want to be able to get straight back into it every single time as well. So that's exactly what we fixed. Any questions on the user?
So that works across. So that would work across. You've got that Netflix. So potentially, if you've got a Stan app, the same functionality could exist, or depending on what they built, what you built, what they built.
Yeah. So we're working. So the thing is with Netflix is that was done at a global level.
Yeah. Obviously, that's
that's
90% of your market right there.
Yeah. With Presto and Stan, we're working locally to build all that in as well. So we will be coming through that. But if you look initially, you've got Netflix in here.
Oh, so YouTube's the other obvious global one.
YouTube's already there as well.
And your smart remote. I think last year you had a
wand
motion.
Yeah, no, we moved the wand. Yep.
Okay,
and
so how do you...
It wasn't wonderful.
And there's a reason for that. Because we've simplified what you actually need to do on the TV, we kind of don't need the wand anymore. So effectively we've just got the left, right, up, down with the enter button in the middle. And various buttons here. There's volume up, volume down, channel up, channel down as well.
What about voice recognition? That was a big thing a couple of years ago.
Yeah, voice recognition is still in here. There's a microphone button just here. Yep, it's still there.
So you push that so that your Connect doesn't...
And this is
switch
still
on.
Tizen.
Can you search across apps?
Still Tizen, yep.
And you don't have everyone's favourite gesture motion recognition?
No, not anymore.
So with the voice control, you can search across app content as well. So if you search for House of Cards, you'll find it in Netflix.
No, not yet. No.
Why?
I would say, but looking at that, it's an interesting question because I got asked that the other day as well. This is definitely the starting point to really lead to something like that. I think it's definitely, even if we look at, say, our multi-room application, we've gone into universal search there. We can search music across all those various streaming services. It really makes sense now to try and bring that into the TV at some point, but at the moment it's not there.
Why didn't you double down on all this gesture stuff? I mean, there seems to be gesture stuff in the S5, and then it's gone in the S7. You had gesture on the TV. Isn't that the future? Natural user interfaces? Why?
No, it's a token gesture.
Why? I suppose. why haven't you doubled down? I mean, one thing that really annoys me about technology is you've got all these amazing breakthroughs. I'm not talking specifically about Samsung. It's all this, just about technology in general. And then there's all this fanfare, and then the next version, was too hard, we got rid of it. Yep. That pisses me off. Why don't you double down and make it work properly?
So I would say, and if I look at my own self, I'm not going to... I personally don't sit in front of a TV and wave my hand to get where I want to get.
But you thought that last year.
But what I will say is, back to your point, what I would find far more advantageous to me is to be able to go, bang, House of Cards, Netflix, and it loads up.
Don't even have to say Netflix.
Or just House of Cards.
Just tell it.
Yeah.
Well, not with House of Cards, no.
Yeah, you know what
It
House
is
of
on
Cards
Fox
does.
Tele. It is on Fox Tele.
But I take what you're saying.
Yeah, just be nice to see, you go down to this path and don't abandon it.
No,
work on it.
I agree
You're
with
allowed
that.
to try and fail sometimes, Alex. It seems fair.
I know.
The other
Cameras on them
parts of
5
that.
years ago. Nobody has cameras on them now because customers went, meh.
They didn't want it, yeah.
But
I know,
the other parts of that is kind of going back to what we've done here is we're all about simplifying the experience for the consumer.
Yeah.
So what we've done here is we've said, right, what are consumers actually annoyed about? And they're annoyed...
Or what are they really using?
Yeah, what are they really using?
Yeah.
But what they're really struggling with is going, how do I just get from my Foxtel box to Netflix without having to press 600 buttons?
Sure.
And maybe
And that
change
makes
your
sense.
input source, your sound
Yeah,
bar at the same
yeah,
time.
exactly.
That all makes sense.
Yeah, so
But that's the
and that's really
I
what
know when
we've
my
done
wife's
in
at
this
home, she doesn't know
2016.
what's connected to
Same
what
underlying
HDMI.
OS.
Yeah.
Tizen. Yep. Yep. So
Well,
Tizen.
occasionally you have for people like, okay, how do I switch this on? Which bit do I do?
So
it gets pretty
So this is your simplest yet most advanced interface yet, is what you're
yes,
saying.
correct, exactly. But it's all based on consumer pain points that we've identified with research.
Just out of interest, could you go to the picture setup menu?
Yeah, so that's a very good point. So if you scroll to the left, I'm just pressing the left button here. We even made that easy. So the basic functions that people are using.
Oh, this is because
we've
I
put
don't care what
into
people use, I want to see what I
Oh,
use. The full picture setup.
yeah, just go into.
You want every last detail.
Yeah, so
No, not that. Go on.
Oh,
to
this one here.
settings. Yeah.
The one down below.
What do you?
The actual full
Yeah.
settings menu.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what he
Like
wants.
an Android swipe down.
That's what he wants to see. Yeah.
There you go.
So it's still there.
So you've still got the same.
We've still got it,
Same-
yeah.
same
But what
interface,
we've
but
done
then
is
put everything under expert.
the ones that we find consumers use the most, we've left into this easy bar. So you don't have to go in and try and find it. Because I always find that as well. I always ask these guys, I'm like, how do I get to get to where the audio is coming out of or whatever, and I can do that a lot quicker now.
The good thing about this as well is once you've connected through to other devices as well, and you're watching that device, it'll actually pick up their menu. So it'll try and work their network settings, this. So what you were clicking on then, so when you go in through
How
there,
did you
it's
get
got
all
a...
that information? Tell me an HDMI connection.
Bring some illustrations.
Got some Samsung magic words in there, haven't you?
So we'll quickly, that kind of sums up the consumer picture experience. So if you've got any more questions, you want to have a demo of that after, we can do that kind of when we wrap up. So what I want to touch on now though is how we've also kind of advanced our soundbar lineup for this year. So if we look at the home theatre market, there's no surprising, nothing new that we're seeing drastic decline over the last 3 or 4 years, but soundbars are really resonating with Australian consumers. But what we found with some research is the number one, I guess, hesitation to a soundbar is still when they sit down and watch a movie, surround sound is just not as good, which I think is kind of obvious. So what we've done this year is all of our soundbar range has gone through our new audio lab in California. So we introduced that with our wireless Multiroom 360 speakers last year. Every single soundbar this year has been engineered and designed there. And what we've done is, for every single soundbar in our range, we've given the option to add rear speakers to it. So if you look at our 3 series, 4 series and 5 series, so this is the 5 series here, we've got a SWA 8000 kit, which you can see kind of see on the tables on the side there. Effectively, there's 2 little bookshelf speakers that wire into a receiver box. That receiver box talks wirelessly to the soundbar.
What's the output on these?
I have to double check that. I don't know off the top of my head. But what we'll say is, and we'll listen to in a minute, we'll say is that rear speaker kit is $179 optional extra. So it's not asking big money to really enhance your TV.
So it's the same kit for all the different...
For the 3, 4, 5 series, when you look at our 6, 7, 8, 9 curved soundbars and all that, they're all multi-room compatible. So our wireless 360 speakers can be added as rear speakers for that as well.
Yeah.
So this K550, as I said, went through the audio lab. We've introduced the center speaker into this 550, so it really enhances the voice clarity. They've kind of adapted and changed the cabinet size to allow it to build the audio quality it needs to. Then we've moved all the physical buttons to this side as well. So again, keeping a really nice, clean, sleek finish, which is what everyone loves about soundbars. So what we're going to do is have a listen to it. So again, if I turn on this Blu-ray player, it will notify me that it's been turned on, and will actually take you straight to that source as well. Now, we were going to show you the Revenant, but we thought it's probably a little bit gruesome for this environment, unfortunately.
In a small dark room.
In a small dark room, yeah. And it does sound like the bear's coming from behind you. So, so we're not going to show you that, but what we will show you is The Martian. It's a UHD HDR content from our new UHD Blu-ray player. 20th Century Fox have been kind enough to give us a whole bunch of movies that we've been able to test on, so we're really excited. As you can see here, it comes up, HDR videos playing, so consumers actually know that they're watching HDR. And again, really pulls away from the limitations of needing certain bandwidth to get 4K or HDR content. This Blu-ray player allows consumers to really get it in any home. So seeing as we're in a very expensive cinema room, I'm sure, we'll turn the lights off. Blast JP out of this one. So we're watching Matt Damon instead of the band. So 550 soundbar, wireless rear speaker here.
critical. Oxygen level 10%. Oxygen level 5%.
And Matt Damon lives on it. And what I want to say is we purposely didn't bring in the top of the range soundbar into this room, because what we wanted to highlight was this is one of our biggest moving soundbars, and for just $179 extra, really you can get a really top-notch audio system to match your TV as well.
So is that the one $1,500?
No. This retails for around $549.
$549.
The one you're talking about is the Dolby Atmos.
Yeah.
That's the second half launch, so we don't have anything
But I
available.
thought you had a top end one that was...
Oh, $15.99. No, that's the curved soundbar,
Yeah,
which is
curved
upstairs.
soundbar, yeah.
Upstairs, yeah. But we purposely didn't put that in here because we wanted to show you what an average consumer can get in their home.
And you were going to show something about Foxtel. You were saying you show it later.
Oh no, I was just going to highlight it. It was all around being able to set your favourites. So
Yeah,
really
yeah.
being able to put your
No,
favourites.
so you said you were going to show it later. But
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. Okay, thank you.
Right, well, we are going to move back upstairs.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Steve. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know so well. I'm Carl Rose, recently arrived Vice President of Consumer Electronics at Samsung. Thank you again from all of our team for you guys coming here tonight. I hope you've had an enjoyable and informative evening so far, and it's not, it doesn't need to end anytime soon. Well, it needs to end at some point. Now, like many of you, and maybe some of you not the case, but like many of you, I've been in the industry quite a long time, nearly 3 decades. So obviously I joined the industry when I was 6. And in this time, we've obviously witnessed some enormous innovation, particularly in the TV category. So when I joined the industry, 32-inch TV was considered large. Anybody guess how much a 32-inch CRT television actually weighed?
50 kilos.
About the same as ours.
12. Phil and I reckon it was about 80 kilos.
I wish.
No, I couldn't lift it because I was only 6. From a very smart person in the corner. So 80 kilos. Now, what do we think the current, or the new 65-inch weighs this year? The latest Samsung SUHD.
18, 20?
About 28.
20.
Yeah. So I wish my weight had gone in the same direction. So I guess that's the kind of reason why we think 2016 is just a really exciting year, fantastic year for the industry. Consumer electronics for me has always been a much more exciting industry than the smarter people I went to university with who were in FMCG. So, fantastic industry. Now, tonight we took the view to try and, as JP said earlier on, curate the 3 zones, and I hope that sort of worked for you. I know you all went in a different order, but if I just talk about the experience zone first. So Simon, I think, showed you one of the common pain points for consumers, and we think the Smart Hub and the One Remote really delivers on a much more simple user experience for consumers. So I hope you enjoyed that session. Simon also showed you in the flesh our new 4K Blu-ray player, which, as you know, we released earlier this week. So clearly when you combine that with SUHD, I think you'd agree it sets a new benchmark for the ultimate home entertainment experience. JP, picture quality. Why should I say JP? It was mainly Dr.
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
JP chipped in. So I think we learnt, we all learnt quite a lot. Those of us at Samsung learnt quite a lot from Dr. Riley in the last wee while about what makes quantum dots so superior. It is a differentiated technology, and why and how we're harnessing this technology to deliver the best TV experience. For me, it was the most interesting physics lesson I ever attended, for sure.
The only one?
Yeah, there weren't many. And finally, in the design space, Caroline, who heads up Insights at Samsung Australia, shared with us lots of research about our own lives, and quite a lot was resonating with me. And together with Amanda, talked about the considerations that her clients apply when trying to create the ideal living situation. Clearly what's critical, and I'm beginning to understand this, understand what my wife's been talking about, is not only aesthetically pleasing, but also the functional delivery for our increasingly busy lives. So those are the three areas. I hope that sort of structure helps you digest the various messages and points of difference that we strongly believe we have at Samsung in 2016. I hope that we've demonstrated our focus very clearly on consumer insight-driven products and marketing planning, which we're very passionate about, and hopefully that passion came through as well. As Phil said right at the start, as the leader in TVs for 10 years now, it's important to Samsung that we continue to lead by listening, and this kind of listening towards leadership, I think, is a really important thing for us to adopt as we go forward. We also, as JP said, see it as our responsibility to make it easier for people to understand today's technology and to choose a TV that's right for them, which, you know, sometimes in retail can be a challenge. And clearly, with more connected devices than ever before, simplicity has never been so crucial. So hopefully that sort of encapsulates what we have communicated to you tonight. I hope you've enjoyed our hospitality. We've enjoyed having you. Please don't feel the need to disappear just yet. The rooms downstairs are still available. Our product specialists are here for more technical questions, which you may not have had time for. I'm sure there's a lot more quantum physics we can discuss deep into the night. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to talking to you again. Cheers.